Okay, it's nearing the end of the year, so this is around the time we start seeing some of the top 10 lists. So I'm of course going to do one on movies. Now of course this is just my personal opinion on movies. I actually had to write down a list of movies that I did not get a chance to see that would probably actually make it onto the list. This time I have an actual physical list because it makes it easier and I don't get yelled at near as much by people. I never got to see 127 Hours, Buried, Monster, or Black Swan. I also currently haven't seen Shutter Island yet. I live in a place where you normally don't get limited run movies. I mean, Buried was in my area for a weekend. Just a weekend. Monster was never here, 127 Hours was never here, neither was Black Swan. So now let's get on to my top 10. 10, start typing your hate comments now. Twilight Eclipse. To be honest, they did the right move here. They toned down the love story a little bit, which would be kind of hard to stretch out over 4 books anyways. And they made it more about the vampires and the werewolves. And let's be honest, if it were not to be for Twilight, there'd be no True Blood, there'd be no Vampire Diaries. The resurgence in vampire and vampire-related stuff is based on Twilight. Most of the hate actually goes towards the fans. The books themselves, they're not written at all to something that I would enjoy. I have lots of friends who actually think the books are absolutely amazing. And they're actually well-read people. But anyways, on the list, so Twilight starts off, start clicking all of your, dude, you fag, you like Twilight, you know, however you want to attack me on that. Number 9, I have a tie. Machete and the Expendables. You're probably thinking, okay, so you topped Twilight with 2 movies that were just over-the-top action movies. They actually delivered on their promise. Expendables was all about Stallone trying to get out multiple syllable words and stuff getting shot. Period. Machete, let's be honest, ever since we saw that trailer during the Grindhouse movies, you wanted to see this movie. It was ridiculously over the top, uber violent, you know, tons of nudity, but essentially just insanely violent. It actually delivered on kicking out that old Grindhouse over the top. You know, you're gonna actually expect a day laborer federale to actually fly in the air on a motorcycle after an explosion with a minigun and just shoot down like 40 people. And it delivered. It was super over the top. 8, Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps. I'm a child of the 80s, and let's be honest, Gordon Gekko is probably the poster child for every financial crisis that's ever happened. To see him come back and to see, you know, Douglas go from being reformed as the character right back into character towards the end, that was good. And then to see him kind of try to reform more towards the end, it worked. You know, it definitely, that movie brought back a lot of that 80 yuppies mentality, which is still around today, and made it work. 7, Kick-Ass. You never read the comic, but this one came out, and it more or less, it did what it said it was going to do. This is going to be a more over-the-top, kind of a more realistic take on a superhero movie. And I thought it was pretty good. It actually was fairly solid. Everyone did a really good job when it came to the acting roles. You know, last time you could say Nicolas Cage was good in a movie. That by itself is worth a lot. The Fighter. I know it just came out. You're probably thinking, yeah, but you're like a Christian Bale fan, and I am. You know, essentially seeing Marky Mark being trained by a drug addict Batman. You know, Bale did a phenomenal job. He is a very good physical actor. He really puts a lot into making these characters really come to life. 5, Love and Other Drugs. Yeah, I thought it was done well. Some people say there's too much nudity, it didn't need it, but you needed that R rating to keep some of the younger people out who might think it's a typical romantic comedy, because the drama elements might have really thrown off people thinking they're going to go in there and it's going to be like, you know, kind of more of a laughy, lovey-dovey sort of movie. So number 4, HP 7.1. That's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. You know, we're getting towards the end of this series, and they did a really good job. I thought the pacing got off every now and then, but you cannot deny that people having played these roles for 7 movies, it comes off really natural. The interactions work. You know, they play these characters for almost up to almost like 30 hours of actually playing these characters. By the time you figure in, you know, extended scenes, deleted scenes, whatnot, they've spent a lot of time, and they've really grown up in these character roles. So it makes sense they actually come off in a fairly realistic manner. Number 3, Book of Eli. You know, Denzel Washington playing a blind guy walking his way across the United States during a post-apocalyptic time to essentially deliver a Braille version of the Bible to help, you know, spread hope and peace throughout the world. Whenever you can see Denzel Washington using like a handmade machete and carving people up, and it's Denzel Washington. It's a very, very powerful movie. If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, I just ruined the ending for you. But it was done beautifully well. I mean, that twist ending towards the end, you could kind of see it a little bit, and then when it happens, you're like, wow, that was a pretty solid movie. Social network. Almost everyone uses Facebook. Is this movie a true representation of the creation of Facebook? I doubt it. 'Cause I'm pretty sure the true version would probably be a little bit more dull. But it had very good acting. Almost everyone involved did a really good job, even Justin Timberlake. You know, when the guy who's going to play Spider-Man kind of punked him, like towards the end, and you saw him like flinch and just, oh, it was great. It was like, you know, I actually kind of like seeing Justin Timberlake, someone do this, and see him like hit the floor, like he's just been shot. You know, people came off solid. And you didn't have that many big name stars, which is good, because we need every now and then to see lesser known talent really be given those opportunities to make great names for themselves and really show an actual wide repertoire of what they can do beyond everyone just playing, you know, skinny sex addicts like we see on almost every other TV show. And number 1, of course, it's Inception. When it comes to an original mainstream plot, a movie that people actually talked about afterwards. When's the last time you saw a movie where you actually had to discuss bits and pieces of the movie? They're actually worth discussing. So Nolan did a great job. He went from, you know, The Dark Knight, which gave him almost a financial backing to do this movie that he's really wanted to do for quite some time. He had the backing, he had the right crew, and it was absolutely an amazing movie. Definitely worth, you know, the price of admission, and easily should be the top movie on most people's list for 2010.